First item we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 13th. Any discussion on the minutes? Do I have a motion?
Move we approve the minutes?
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, do we have any lobby visitation?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Utilities Director report.
All right, thank you. I got two items for you. First is our FAS 71 power cost reconciliation, and we do this every year. Come to you in February to recap our power supply costs for the previous year, so this will be for 2024. And this is an accounting practice that we have to go through to make sure we're in compliance with our bond covenant requirements from some of the projects that we're involved with. But basically, this is a reconciliation of the power supply transactions that occurred in 2024, and it's a comparison to our base power costs, which is in our PCA calculation. In some years we are over collected, in some years we're under collected. We try to get it as close to zero as possible to be balanced, but this past couple of years we've been in an over collected state. And if you recall, going back to 2020, 2021, we were on the under collected state, and we had to transfer those dollars into the next year to collect those from customers. In this situation now, we've been over collected for the last 2 years, and this past year it was $2.7 million. I gave you a chart that kind of reflects some of the information that was in the last budget presentation, where we predicted or projected that in 25 we're projected to be over collected again by 1.9 million, but then in 26 to be under collected by 2.6 million. That's really just the fluctuation of our power supply costs and what's happening in the electric industry in general. We're seeing higher capacity prices and transmission prices that are out of our control. So a lot of times when we do a cost of service study, the base rate that's included in the PCA calculation will get adjusted, and we did not get the cost of service study completed in 2024, but we're hoping to get that done in 2025. And there is a table that shows you the calculation on the next page of your packets for this item. And the $2.7 million comes from it's column in line 12 at the very far right of that. That's where that 2.7 million is shown. So really, this sheet is really a comparison of lines 15 and 18. So if line 15 is less than line 18 as far as a kilowatt hour price goes, then we are over collecting because our prices are less than what we had projected. And if the line 15 is higher than line 18, then we're in an under collected state for that month. And you can see in some months it goes up and down. Some months we're under collected, some months we're over collected. But the summation for the total year is $2.7 million. Just in general, we did see some reasons for the over collection in 2024. Our energy sales were higher than they were in 2023 and previous years. For example, if you look at line 5, that's the energy sales in kilowatt hours. On the far right is a total at 518 million kilowatt hours. And in 2023, that number was 493 million. So our energy sales were better in 24. We also saw some lower power supply related costs than what we had budgeted for in some of the projects. For example, Prairie State had lower transmission costs to get that power from across the MISO to the PJM border to deliver to our area. Also, market energy prices were a little bit less than what was budgeted. And we did have a little higher costs on the transmission side, but those did not outweigh the lower cost on some of our other projects. So overall, I'd say it's a very good position to be in. Again, if you approve this, then the 2.7 million will be transferred back to our PCA reconciliation for 2025 over the next 10 months at 10% each month. Again, that's our normal practice for this process, but be happy to take any questions you might have on this one.
Discussion?
Is it fairly often to go this kind of 8-year period between cost of service surveys, that they're pretty accurate on those? That seems like we've been pretty good about, staying rate close to zero or over collecting.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an anomaly. We've tried not to have, rate increases, just to have a rate increase. And in our current rate structure, like our last, I think our last rate increase was, oh my gosh, wish Jackie was here to help me out. It's been several years now since we've done a rate increase in electric. Part of that is because our power supply costs are mostly fixed costs when it comes to the projects that we're involved with. And so we don't see a tremendous amount of fluctuation in the cost that it's minor here and there. But I think it's one reason why the electric rates have been able to be maintained where they are. We've still been able to do our projects, our capital projects, keep the system running and being efficient. But there are some outside influences that we don't have any control over, like the PJM capacity prices, the ATSI zone transmission prices. Those things do go to our bottom line and have a direct impact on our costs. But typically, you'd like to see a cost of service study done about every 4 to 5 years. So we are getting, to the point where we should go back and look at that. And we do intend to do that. That was included in our 25 budget to go back and do a cost of service and rate study and, kind of reset or recalibrate the base rate, as well as the rates for all of our customer classes in that study.
And in the years that we were in recovery, was that somewhat to do with the pandemic and energy use during that time?
The under recovered years that you can see 2022, we were under recovered by $600,000. If you recall, like 2020, it might have been like 3.2 million, roughly 3.5 million. 2021 was a little bit less, at like say about maybe $2 million under recovered. Mm-hmm. And so we had predicted that that the current electric rates and the PCA was adequate enough to recover those dollars up until we got to 2023, and it did pan out that way. We're in an over-collected state.
Okay.
But again, when you look at the overall cost of the electric power supply costs, over $50 million, you're trying to hit close to zero as possible. $2.7 million does sound like a big number, but relative to a $50 million budget expense line, it's really not that far off of zero. We could adjust it by fluctuating the PCA each month. That's a little bit of a guessing game, and that causes havoc with customer bills because they anticipate, customers typically like to see stable rates and they know what they're going to pay, especially the large industrial customers. And so if the PCA would ever change from zero and maybe become positive or negative, that does impact the customer's ability to budget and plan for those expenses. So we've left it at zero. Didn't see a need to change as long as that PCA was close to zero. And again, it's been working out to our benefit to leave it that way.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Do I have a motion?
Sir Chair, make a motion to approve Resolution 02-2025-01, authorizing the previous year's power supply cost reconciliation schedule.
Second?
Michelle?
Suzie,
Yes.
Pogan,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
and Newlove.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item is a request for a water rate adjustment. You may recall a few months ago, we came to you with a sewer or wastewater rate adjustment. Kind of the same concept and methodology was used here. We did not complete a cost of service study for this, but we're also only asking for a one-year adjustment. The 2025 water revenue budget did include the anticipation of a 7% sales revenue increase, which would be reflected in either higher sales or a rate adjustment. We don't anticipate the sales are going to become realized, so that's why we're proposing a 7% rate adjustment. At this time, there was no rate adjustment in 2024, so the last rate adjustment was April 1st of 2023. We typically do sewer or wastewater rate adjustments in January, which that did go into effect when the board approved that at the end of last year. That was effective January 1st. The water rate adjustments are typically in April 1st, and we're asking for the board to approve, again, an adjustment of about 7% on April 1st of 25. Electric rates are typically adjusted in July, but again, we don't have any plans for adjusting electric rates in 2025 at this point in time. We did see some fairly levelized cash reserves in previous 2 years, but last year it did show a dip in cash reserves, and this year's budget was expecting a larger reduction in cash reserves. And again, the cash reserves are good to maintain and to help us to weather through these times where expenses are higher than we would like, or maybe we have larger capital projects to fund from 1 year to the next. But we can't depend upon that, forever. So our recommendation, again, like on wastewater, was to do a 7% adjustment. We'd like to do a cost of service study to get a multi-year rate plan in place for both wastewater and water. Those can be difficult to do when you've got, so we'd like to do electric as well. And typically we're pretty good at getting, one utility done per year for a cost of service study, just because it does take a lot of time on Jackie and the utility business office staff's schedule to do a cost of service study. There's a lot of data they have to put together for the consultants to look at our rates and go through that process. So I'm not saying we're going to get all of these done in 2025, but typically you're better off to do smaller increment adjustments over a period of time than say one large adjustment. So if we don't do anything in 2025, if we come back and have a study done in 2026, likely it's going to result in a much larger percentage adjustment at that time. So our recommendation would be to, again, move forward with the 7% increase. And I did give you a table that kind of shows you what those rates would look like. And then at the bottom of the write-up for you, there was 3 comparison bills that we typically would use in a cost of service study we've had done in the past. They would look at residential, commercial, and industrial and show you the comparison between what the bill for 2023 would be and then what the bill for 2025 would be. And the same, the 23 bill would also be the 2024 bill as well, because there's no adjustment in 2024. And you can see that those are roughly 7% across the board for all of those. Same kind of increases would be true for outside retail rates and also wholesale rates. We've tried to put more of the adjustment on the fixed monthly costs. So the variable costs, so the charge that gets assigned to somebody or assessed to somebody for their consumption of water, the cubic feet or the gallons, whichever one you want to call it. There's a smaller percentage of that rate increase that's attributed to the consumption or the cubic feet, and a larger percent of the adjustment is attributed to the fixed cost or the monthly customer charge. So I'd be happy to take any questions you might have for that.
So Brian, is this 500 cubic feet you have, for example, here under residential, is that an average?
It can be typical, yeah. I mean, some larger homes maybe use closer to 600-700 cubic feet if you have larger families. I know when my son was living with us, and he's at college now, we had much higher water bills. But that's just attributed to more people in the house. So fewer people would probably have maybe a little bit less than 500 cubic feet. If you have more people, then it'd be a little bit over 500 cubic feet. I think my house was typically around 600 to 700 cubic feet per month. Again, so it's a ballpark number.
But so like $1 or so a month?
Yeah, you're talking about $12.80 for the old rate, and if the new rate is proposed, it would go to $13.70. So it's a 90-cent, less than $1 increase. So 7% sounds maybe like a lot, but over the course of a month for water service, it'll probably be about $1 for most customers. That's my guess.
Thank you.
What do you attribute the flat sales to? Cite flat sales in here.
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of water efficiency that goes into new appliances, dishwashers, washing machines, and people are replacing those every day in our system. So even though we may have new industrial customers, those industrial customers aren't always big water users. A lot of times they may have just locker rooms for staff to utilize. New homes typically also, we see, smaller water consumption for all those, even though there are some homes being constructed here now. And water, and residential is typically not the big driver for water demand. I think we will see a much larger increase when Abbott gets constructed and they're actually using water for their operation. When the data center north of town is constructed or during its construction phase, if they're using water for dust control or for making concrete on site, we'll see increases there. But yeah, typically water is able to maintain levelized usage across from year to year. Wastewater is where we tend to see actually reductions in usage. And so our rate adjustments in wastewater normally anticipate flat sales, no increases from year to year. But when you actually get declining sales, then your rates again are out of whack because you anticipated to sell a certain amount, you actually sold less, and therefore you have less revenue. So water is normally a little bit easier to predict or to guess that you're going to have relatively flat sales, more so than wastewater. But that's the best response I can get to you for that time.
Brian, is it safe to assume the university is our largest water user?
The district and the university are likely the two biggest ones. Yeah.
University is relatively flat also?
Yeah. And they do a lot of, as they're doing upgrade projects to the buildings, again, a lot of restrooms probably in there, but probably going to low flow or maybe no flow toilets, sinks typically are replaced out too with, low flow fixtures there. Yeah, so a lot of the university side is master metered, so we don't know what each individual building is utilizing, but
Or how were they billed under which category?
they'd be under industrial.
Industrial, okay.
Yeah. There's we identify, commercial and industrial here, but if you look at the rate schedule that says draft at the top, on the top of the table there for inside corporation water rates, you'll see commercial and industrial is actually the same, and so the usage charge for both of those is the same, and the monthly capacity charge based on the meter size is the same. But what you find typically is that the commercial, what we call commercial, you might think of as commercial, but would have typically a smaller meter, and industrial would typically have a larger meter. But in reality, they're paying the same rate. We used to have different rates for commercial and industrial, but we didn't really have a clear way to define what makes you commercial or what makes you industrial, and it was based off of, basically what we thought you were. So a couple of years ago, we tried to standardize those under one rate class because they're all the same. So they'd all just be paying basically the same user rate for usage and the capacity charge. So, and you'll see the same thing on the wastewater side as well. There's commercial and industrial is all one class, so to speak.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve Resolution 02-2025-02, authorizing a water rate schedule adjustment.
I'll second.
Newlo,
Read the roll?
Yes.
sorry. Jesse,
Yes.
Pogan,
Yes,
Suzik.
Yes.
thank you.
All right, thank you. That's all I have for you, unless you have questions for me.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
I have a couple items for the board to consider. First item, sale of vehicles and equipment. Great state of Ohio has a requirement that if we want to sell or dispose of anything vehicle or equipment that has a value over $1,000 that we need to seek board and council approval. So we're here to do that. Although many cases, the vehicles will be traded to reduce the purchase price of the new vehicle. Other times we can get quotes or auction. We have a relationship with Enterprise for purchasing new vehicles, and they will auction off our used vehicles. Sometimes in the situation explained here, for our specialty vehicles, there's other municipalities that have a need for something that's gently used, so we will ask for you to approve sale directly to another municipality. And then similarly for equipment such as transformers, we like to sell used transformers to other municipalities that have a need. So that's what we have for you here. We have about 11 vehicles that we're looking to sell, one of which the Village of North Baltimore has made us an offer for a truck 419 for $12,000. So we seek your approval to sell transformers that are no longer needed and the vehicles listed on the page.
What is done with the revenue?
Pardon?
What is done with the revenue from the sales?
It goes back into the fund that purchased the vehicle. So if it was bought by electric, then the revenue goes back to electric, or in this case, like the water plant has a couple items and water sewer also has a couple items. So it stays with the fund that made the purchase.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not immediately accessible either because it's not in the budget. So we would have to get it out of the fund to use it, we would have to seek appropriations.
Thank you.
It's just
Further
savings.
discussion?
Sir Chair, make a motion to approve Resolution 02-2025-03, authorizing the sale of vehicles and equipment no longer needed for municipal purposes.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Michelle, will you read the roll?
Suzik,
Yes.
Hogan,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Newlove.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item I have is regarding insurance for overhead and underground lines and systems. The city has what we refer to as a BORMA policy that covers all of our buildings and substations and the equipment within those, but that does not cover everything out in the field or the world, like the power lines or the sewer lines or underground electric cables, et cetera. We've carried insurance for those items to protect against catastrophic events. Our policy was last reviewed in 2007, so almost 20 years ago. And they considered the cost and coverage percentages at 90% overhead and 30% underground. Over the years, the premium increases were relatively small, but since I think our insurance agent moved on and a new person's come in and they've taken our policy and asked us to look at things, and our premium has jumped from $98,000 a year to $189,000 a year. Due to rising asset replacement costs, higher material and labor prices, as well as a broader industry rate increases, probably from recent natural disasters and such. Cincinnati Insurance, our provider, also reviewed their rate structure and liability exposure, contributing to the increase. Our policy coverage includes $10 million blanket coverage for above-ground assets, $171 million blanket coverage for underground assets, $10 million for earthquakes, $5 million for floods, and our deductible ranges from $50,000 to $100,000. We explored options with our local agent to reduce costs. Adjusting replacement costs could lower the premium, but the risk reducing coverage and raising the deductible had almost no impact on the cost. Despite the rate increase, we do not recommend dropping the policy as it provides essential coverage for our infrastructure. We will continue to explore insurance options in 2025 and report back to you with our findings. But due to the premium increase, we don't have enough funds in the budget, and we require supplemental appropriation as described on the second page of your memo.
Questions?
Got a couple questions. Jim, is this like the equivalent of your house burning to the ground? I mean, to cover, the max, you mentioned, the millions of dollars of coverage. Is that like if the city got wiped out, basically, to rebuild our distribution lines and such?
Yeah, I think like tornadoes come through or high straight line winds and wiped out miles of poles, or an earthquake went through the area and completely broke every underground water line and sewer line. It's that kind of coverage.
Okay. Also had, when we sell a portion of the distribution lines to AMP recently, right? What percentage of, I forgot, of the
Transmission lines.
of the transmission lines, does that have any effect on, since we got a lot less to cover, what percentage, I forget what percentage we ended up selling, but of the lines?
Yeah, just a small fraction
Oh, that
of
was
our
just a fraction?
miles
Okay, so
of
that
lines.
had really
right.
no effect then, okay.
Your point is taken, though, that once that is sold, that would no longer be under this policy, and we would update the policy and let them know that is no longer our responsibility. We will still have a circuit on that pole line, so we'll still have some infrastructure involved with the wires or the circuits that are on the poles, but the poles themselves will be owned by AMT. So, but we'll update our policy to take that off of the list.
Jim, who else is involved in this kind of business besides Cincinnati Insurance? I see we sought a local quote. How many players are in this game for us to see other quotes to be, realistic?
I'm not an insurance guy, so I can't answer that specifically, but our agent did put out or request quotes for our policy, and no one responded except Cincinnati.
I gotcha. And that's using our local agent, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for helping with me then.
Is there any way to know what other municipalities are doing? Like other AMP?
I think some
there
probably
anything?
don't have this coverage, and others do. And we had conversations, weighing, well, how much have we paid in premiums over the last 10 years versus how much have we actually used the policy? And, we were paying a much lower premium than what they're asking now. But a few years back, we did have some straight line winds take out a large section of poles on Route 25, and the insurance did pick up the cost to repair and replace those poles.
Do we believe that some of this price shock is due to the fact that we haven't seen a major policy underwritten change in several years?
Absolutely. Our current agent has expressed he doesn't know how the old agent ever got
Yeah.
someone to sign off on this for
A different
the last
box was
several
checked, I'm
years.
sure. Thank you.
Who's he working for now?
Yeah, that's fine. We tried that.
Additional questions? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve Resolution 02-2025-04, authorizing a supplemental appropriation for overhead and underground lines insurance.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion that's seconded. Would you read the roll?
Newlove,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Hogan,
Yes.
Suzik.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go to utilities management reports. Matt? Electric?
No report this evening.
I'm sorry?
No report this evening.
Water supply, Brent?
The staff has been doing scheduled maintenance.
Thank you.
Water distribution, Mike?
We've just been working on scheduled maintenance and pump stations, so.
Water pollution control?
Preventative maintenance and getting the biofilter ready to be put back in service.
See Jackie's absent. Official reports, Mike? No report. Lori? Not here. Hunter? Not here. Mick? No report. All right, thank you. Brad?
On this past Thursday, we opened bids for the community center pickleball courts. We had 5 bidders, so it's a lot of interest in the project. We are going to award the project to Geddes Paving and Excavating out of Toledo. They've done some other pickleball courts in the area, and the price came in low enough that we are able to do all 8 courts with lighting as well. So utilities will be picking up the lighting portion of that here. And then we also submitted our drawings and specs for the South Main Street paving project that'll occur this summer. So we'll be waiting for ODOT to give us the authorization to advertise, and we'll probably be hearing that probably the first part of March, I'm guessing. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Communications Director, Amanda? No report. No report. All right. Council members' reports. Board member reports?
No.
New business? Unfinished business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.